Okay, I just wanted to identify the carpal bones for you and the wrist. So we can start with any of them, but I'll start with trapezium, which is under the thumb. You see the trapezium is right here, okay? And then next to that one we have the scaphoid, and you'll see it's more of a boat-shaped, like the scaphoid, okay? And then we've got the lunate, and you'll see the lunate from the front side, sitting right in that floor of the carpal tunnel. Okay, and then we have the triquetrum. Interestingly enough, the triquetrum, we have the pisiform articulating with the triquetrum. Okay. Then we have on, again, the radial side, underneath the second metacarpal, we've got the trapezoid. Okay, and the trapezoid is a diamond-shaped bone, so you'll see that on the dorsal aspect is quite broad, but if you turn it over on the palmar aspect is quite a sharp or a much smaller surface. Okay, so that acts like a wedge in there. Next to the trapezoid is the capitate, and it's the large one, and you'll see that it actually goes down into the proximal row. Technically it's in the second row, but you'll see it goes down and it has that bulbous formation that articulates with both the scaphoid and the lunate. Okay. Lastly, on the ulnar side, we've got the hamate, and there's the hook of the hamate here, and there's the dorsal aspect. You'll see that number 4 and number 5 articulate with the hamate, the number 3 with the capitate, the number 2 with the trapezoid, and the number 1 articulates with the trapezium. And if we turn it over to the palmar surface, we can visualize that the transverse ligament and the transverse carpal ligament forming that carpal tunnel here is right here, and that the capitate is right in the center of it. You see there's not much room between the capitate and that transverse ligament for the 9 tendons and the median nerve to go through there. Right here we have between the pisiform and the hook of the hamate, we've got the trapezohamate ligament, which forms the roof of the tunnel of the Guion, and then my finger would visualize where the ulnar nerve travels through that tunnel right there. So very compact and a little space there. Now in real life, it's, we can't see the bones, so we have to palpate through all the tissues. But again, if we start very simply with underneath the first metacarpal, we've got the trapezium right here. And then if I stabilize trapezium, we can feel the scaphoid. If we extend the thumb, anatomical snuff box, there is the lateral side of the scaphoid, and it articulates and comes around to the dorsal aspect just off of Lister's tubercle. So here's Lister's tubercle there, and here is Lister's tubercle here. So if we go to Lister's and then go on to the radial side, the slip down will be right on top of that scaphoid. So we can move the wrist around and feel that scaphoid. And then off of Lister's, when we flex the wrist, we've got the peak showing up there, and that is the lunate. And I will say the moon rises when you flex, and the moon sets when you extend. Next to the lunate, we've got the triquetrum, and the triquetrum is right in here at the ulnar meniscal triquetral joint, okay, because there's 3 structures in there. We've got the ulna, the meniscus that's in here, and the triquetrum. So it's an ulnar meniscal triquetral joint. And it's a loose articulation. You can see how loose that is. Whereas on the radial side, it's a very limited articulation and much stronger. Okay? That's why we can take the triquetrum and move it quite readily. Common area of injury in the wrist is through this loose arrangement, the ulnar meniscal triquetral joint. Okay? If we turn over and we extend the wrist a little bit, we can feel the pisiform. Okay, the flexor ulnaris tendon comes onto the pisiform, turns into the hamate ligament, which is right here. And so there is the hook of the hamate rolling over off of the second and the fourth and the fifth metacarpal. We can move the hook of the hamate, which moves the hamate bone on number 4 and number 5 metacarpal, which is right there. Okay, working our way, so we work our way around this way, and we're now onto the main bone in the wrist, the center bone, which I call the keystone of the wrist, and that's the capitate bone. If the capitate is subluxed, it can essentially cause some havoc with the rest of the carpal bones because everything tends to articulate around the capitate. Okay, so that's the area to look at when you're treating people. And then, of course, back to the trapezoid. The trapezoid, I say the trapezoid is trapped between the trapezium and the capitate, so it creates a wedge-like in there. So when you make a fist like this, you'll see the edge of that dome is where the capitate does that, because when you do that, the capitate goes forward. The trapezium goes forward towards the palm, but the rest of them come dorsally, and that's what creates the dome. So there's your quick anatomical review of the wrist, and to give you an idea of how to get a hold of those carpal bones.